Hello everyone, this is Marshall Official. Welcome back to another Russia-Ukraine War update. We have a lot of very interesting updates from the last couple of days. Let's get into it right away. Starting here in the Kursk region. Russian forces have reached and captured all the border area in this part of the front line. So on the western side of the Kursk region, they have captured this is already complete in the previous view. But they've captured the village of Sverdlovkovo. They've pushed into Lebedivka. The major news from this part of the front line, however, is that the Russian forces reportedly have crossed into the Sumy Oblast and are launching attacks in this direction. They have not been confirmed to have actually captured any ground in the Sumy region, but they have been confirmed to have entered the Sumy region. Their goal in this part of the front line is believed to be the capture of this town right here. If the Russian forces can capture this part of this town right here, doing so would cut the R200 highway that leads into Russia and towards Suja. This would sever Ukraine's main supply line and would greatly hurt the Ukraine logistics in the Kursk region. That could also be paired with an attack coming from this direction. However, so far there's been no confirms of this. But we do know Russian forces have pushed into the Sumy region. We also have changes on this part of the front. Russian forces have completely recaptured pretty much all the lost territory from Ukraine's armored attack a few weeks ago, where the Ukrainian forces launched an attack in this direction. They pushed from Suja down this way, and they tried to enter the village of Ulanok. They were unsuccessful, however, and they are now being pushed back at this time. They have been pushed back up to this point right here. Russian forces have managed to recapture the town of Cherkassia Konopelka, and that is all for the Kursk region. Moving on to the Volchansk direction, we have absolutely nothing. This front remains quite low, quite dead, if you will. Up here on the eastern side of the Kursk region, we have Russian forces that managed to capture Topoli and have linked Bridgehead to the Russian border, as well as to their small gain up here with this little forested area. So this area is under Russian control at this point. First, the South Russian forces have made a big gain on the western side of the Oskil River, capturing some forested areas and pushing up to the town of Dovhenka, and are pushing towards these several villages, but specifically Putnikovo. Those villages are now under threat. Russian forces are continuing their attacks on the western side of the Oskil River. Moving on further to the south, Russian forces have captured this forested area right here on the western side of the Serebriets River. They've also captured the entire town of Novolibivka. Russian forces on this part of the front line are continuing to try and expand their bridgehead over the Serebriets River. The more ground that Russia gains on this part of the front line, the closer they get to the Oskil River, as well as the more danger that Liman is in, which Russian forces will probably make an attempt to recapture at some point in the near future. Over here, we have a geolocated video that shows Russian forces have managed to capture the last part of Bilohorivka, and they are pretty much at this point just about to fully cut off and take over the last part of the Luhansk Oblast in this part of the front line. This area has been under Ukrainian control since 2022, since their attack on 2022. This area has been under Ukrainian control. Russian forces are about to completely push Ukrainians out of the Luhansk Oblast on this part of the front line once again. At the same time, however, I have left. This area is probably the most iffy of the entire front line. This is why I have the Ukrainians way back here. I just had this huge gray zone. It's just simply a lot more iffy in this part of the front line. In reality, the Ukrainian forces likely do control like these forested areas right here, and do still control some ground in the Luhansk Oblast. But the Russian forces have been able to push the Ukrainians back, and they have now captured the last part of Bilohorivka, and they will very soon likely completely capture the Luhansk Oblast area that I have here in the gray zone right here. This area will likely be under Russian control very soon. Moving on from that down to the Chasiv Yar front line, we have no changes whatsoever from the Chasiv Yar front line. On the Tourette's front line, we again have no changes on this part of the front line from the last couple of days. Moving on, but however, we move on to the Pokrovsk front. Russian forces have been pushing back against the Ukrainian counterattacks. They pushed back into Lysivka and captured about a third of it, I'd say. Yeah, about a third of it, a little bit more than a third of it. They've also recaptured the mine up here that they lost to the Ukrainian forces when they counterattacked. The Ukrainian forces still maintain their counterattack positions in Zverovo, but they have still lost the town of Pishani, which they previously pushed into. So Russian forces are once again counterattacking in this direction as well as this direction, retaking the lost ground, and continuing to set up the possible attack for Pokrovsk to take the city itself. Moving on from there, we have more Russian gains up here to the west. More gains pushing towards the border between Donetsk and the next oblast over the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Over here, Russian forces have captured the town, or almost captured the entire town of Zaporizhzhny, and they've also captured a tree line. And in this forest area up here, they've captured a big chunk of ground and several tree lines over here. And in the big news, here's huge news. The entire pocket that was here to the south has been closed up. The Russian forces have completely pushed the Ukrainians out of this area right here, and they are beginning their push westward already. Russian forces have pushed into Constantinople, and there's already a threat that the Ukrainians here in this town could be encircled. So there's already another possible encirclement happening just to the west of the previous one. But this entire area is now under Russian control. That's a pretty chunk of ground. That's a big chunk of ground. 24.9 miles, 11.4 square miles. That's a big chunk of ground. So the Russian forces have captured a lot of ground in this area. Further to the south, Russian forces have captured ground north of Veliki Novosilke, and they've captured multiple trains, and they've also completely captured the town of Novosilka. So we can see here, as usual, from the last couple of days, Russian forces have been very active on the southern Donetsk part of the front line, continuing to try and mop up the last chunk of it here to the west, as well as retaking control of the Polk-Rels front. And in general, Russian forces are in control of the front lines once again. We also have a small little change over here to the west. Russian forces assaulted the town of Piatikarty. Russian forces did not capture. Were able to capture part of it. They did not capture the entire village. But Russian forces are trying to capture the entire village. This is the first time they've attacked this town since it was liberated by the Ukrainians way back in 2023 during their failed counteroffensive. Russian forces are now trying to undo the Ukrainian gains in this area. In the 2023 counteroffensive, Ukrainian forces were able to capture about this chunk of ground right here. This area used to be under Russian control, it is now under Ukrainian control. So it's not much, but Russian forces are trying to retake it. That is all the changes for the front line. We also do have some news up here. Ukrainian forces from just a few hours ago, 13 hours ago, and I believe about 2 hours ago. We have geolocation. We have videos for both of these, but one of them is real horrible. This one up here is not good. An oil depot was blown up right here, or attacked by a Ukrainian drone, and an oil refinery is attacked up here. So the depot here was right around in this area. It's hard to pinpoint it exactly, but right in this area, there's a depot that was attacked. And over here we did have a refinery that was attacked up here in the city of Ryazan. That's where the attack took place. Just gonna give you guys some general updates from across the front line using a live view map as my source. Over here we have some explosions over here in Odessa, as well as a cruise missile or a jet-powered drone is flying towards Odessa district. So there was an attack on Odessa. The Ukrainian forces claim that they have shot down 113 strike drones overnight. That's quite a few. That's probably exaggerated. The Ukrainian president said that it is important for us that Washington does not agree with Moscow on any conditions unknown to us, and we have the right to demand this. Yeah, I can't do it justice in this video, but if you have been paying attention to what's been happening off the battlefield, like between specifically like Trump, Putin, well, more so Trump and Zelensky, but also Trump and Putin, and Trump, Putin, and Zelensky, it's been a very active off the battlefield scenario that we've been seeing, mostly revolving around trying to end the war and make a deal to actually end this war. But it's also been about this mineral deal that Trump wants the Ukrainians to agree to get their rare earth metals to pay back for all the stuff that the U.S. has given Ukraine. Zelensky says, no, we're not doing that. And it's just causing a lot of tension and a lot of uncertainty for what the future could bring. And some other news that's not on here. And Germany today just held its elections, their parliamentary elections. The CDU came out on top with close to 30% of the vote. Also, the AfD party in Germany came second place with just over 20% of the vote, and the other parties like the SPD got like 15 or 16%, and then the Greens were fourth place, and then it was just like much lower numbers from there on out. So the German elections. So the German elections, however, show that there is a shift towards the right in Germany. The Conservative Party has won the election, and the AfD, the far right party, has come out second place. So that is big news for Germany. It is unclear what the new government in Germany will look like. Maybe it will be a coalition between the CDU and the SPD and the Greens. Well, that's what they're saying. They're saying it's almost certainly going to be a coalition between the SPD, CDU, and the Greens. That's what it's going to be. There's a problem with that, however. the AFD won the well. They didn't win. The AFD got second place with more than 1/5 of the people's vote, and the CDU only got 10% more, 30%. So the question is, how can they just tell the people, the 20% of the more than 20% of people that voted for the AFD, hey, congratulations, you got second place, you guys did great. Oh, also we're going to ignore you, and you're not allowed to be in the government, because in Germany it's kind of an unofficial rule between all the parties that they cannot ever allow a far right party to be in the German government ever again. Like, they will not allow a far right party in the government no matter what. So technically, that means that the only way for the AFD party to get into power is if they got more than 50% of the vote. But the thing is that the AFD party has never been this strong. The AFD party is at this point a very large party. It is the major party now. It's the second largest party in the country. So how can you just like force them out of the government when they literally got, more than 1/5 of the vote? They're second place in the elections, and they at least are, in terms of political wise, probably more aligned with a conservative party than a liberal party. So it's a whole mess. It's a whole mess, right, in Germany because of that system or that idea. But chances are the AfD party will not be allowed to be in the government, even though they technically deserve to, because they came second place in the election and got tons of support. They will be forced out of the government and will not be allowed to be part of it. But that will likely only make the AfD grow even stronger, and will probably cause a lot of chaos in Germany because of that. So we will monitor that situation as well. As for over here in the United States, U.S. Defense Secretary said that America has invested more than any other country in helping Ukraine. It's time for peace. So again, talks about peace. There's a lot of talk going on right now about peace and trying to what's called stop the war in Ukraine. There's talks been going on in Saudi Arabia about this war, and here's the two drones that hit. So this one hit an oil depot near Brusyansky village, and this one hit a refinery near Ryazan. Over here in news from Moscow, Russia and the U.S. will hold talks on irritants in bilateral relations at the end of next week at the level of heads of departments of foreign ministries. And speaking of just talks or whatever, again, Saudi Arabia is where talks have been happening. And that is your entire map update as well as your political update. I cannot do the political updates justice in this video. It would have to be its own video to just kind of like review what's been going on between Trump and Zelensky, Ukraine, the U.S., and all that, and how the U.S. is proceeding forward. That deserves its own video. It's a whole topic. But anyways, for this video though, that is everything for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. Goodbye.